Yeah, the whole thing with that with me, I remember this like I went to Marvel and I sent my Flash Iron Heights stuff over there. I faxed it over to Marvel. I said, look at my artwork. Do you have any is there a job over there for me? And they came back in the X office. I think Joe Quesada said the X office is interested in you. And I said, wow, cool. So the X office called me up, and that was
Mark Powers and Pete Franco. Yeah.
and Pete Franco. And they said, hey, we want to know what you want to do here. And I said, I want to do a Jean Grey story. They said, that's nice. We want you to do fill ins for Frank Whiteley on Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. And I said, yeah, that sounds, wow, that sounds crazy. Like, that's a big, enormous gig. And I'm 24 years old, and I'm kind of, that's okay. We want you to do this. So they said, you're only going to have to do 2 issues out of the year, et cetera, et cetera. Frank Whiteley will do the other 10. That ballooned up to be 8 out of the 12 because Vince Deegan was very slow. And it was pretty much intolerable. I turned in the first issue of New X-Men. I'm turning in pages. And I'd been working with Jeff Johns and other writers who were very receptive and very communicative. So we could have discussions about what I was doing. I'd never worked with someone as remote as Grant Morrison before who wouldn't talk to any of us. Like literally, he would talk to Frank Whiteley. If we wanted to talk to, if the editors, I was told, if the editors wanted to talk to Grant Morrison, they had to approach his girlfriend in order to get there. So I would say I don't know if I'm doing a good job. Like, could you let me know, like, what is Grant saying of my pages? What is he saying about them? And this, listen, Grant loves what you're doing. He absolutely loves what you're doing. It is awesome. Just keep going in that direction, buddy. Just awesome work. So I did. I finished up New X-Men 117. I was turning in the last few pages, and they said, "Would you like to go out to dinner with or lunch with us? Would you like to? We'd like to take you to lunch to talk about X-Men." And I was like, okay. So we were driving down for vacation anyway from upstate New York down through the city. I remember that we were going to Virginia Beach, and I had to go in there and meet Pete Franco and what's his name, Mark Powers, and it took me out to a bar and fed me lobster ravioli and beer. And so I was new to Marvel. Listen, I was happy at DC. Here I am at Marvel. It was a whole different experience. So these guys are just talking to me like I'm 3 years old, and they're just like, "You must be so excited to be working on X-Men." And I was then pretty much the way I am now, which is sure, you know,
Yeah.
you know what I
Give me
mean.
what he
Like
did.
it's a gig. I have ideas. Like essentially, I'm an idea guy who just wants to do what I do. Am I excited about working with Grant Morrison? No, I'm terrified. I'd really rather do my Jean Grey story. So I'd be like, yeah, it's great, guys. And they're just like, so what do you think of how Grant Morrison is treating Scott Summers, Cyclops? And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, we just thought that he was making Scott Summers seem like a dick. Like he's just an asshole. And we were concerned about that. We were concerned about his treatment of Cyclops. And so we asked him, we said, Grant, are you treating Cyclops like an asshole? And Grant Morrison, Ethan, Grant Morrison wrote us back an email that was really reassuring about, how Scott Summers was going to have an arc. Okay. And you really need to read this email. You should read this email, Ethan, from Grant. It's going to show you. It's going to show you, like, what is going to happen with Cyclops in the future. So they took me over. They're like, you got it. You got to watch this. You got to read this email. So I'm like, okay, So they take me back to their offices, and I'm like, I have my jacket there and everything, or whatever. My bag. I guess I didn't have a jacket, but I had my. And I went to get it, and they're like, no, no, no. You need to sit down here in front of the computer. Hold on. We need to show you this. They're typing over my shoulder. And
Really?
I could see they were, yeah, very insistent that I read this email. And I was like, okay. So they bring up this email. I'm sitting here, a 24-year-old kid, like sitting here at Marvel Comics with these guys who basically pull up this email. And it's like Grant Morrison for a paragraph going, yeah, look, Scott's going to start out this way, but then this is going to happen. He's going to end up on the other side of the rainbow. It's going to be just fine. Now, on to Ethan Van Sciver. This is now the fourth artist. The fourth or third? Can't remember. I think he said fourth. Fourth fill-in artist that you've saddled me with without my permission. I don't like his artwork. I don't know why you continue to do this to me.
They showed you this?
Yes.
This is what it said after they told you that he loved your stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
For an entire issue, I'd been working 2 months of like hard labor working on New X-Men 117. Could I get some guidance, anything, some help? Like, what's Grant saying? So this was, and these were your boys who got fired. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is why I'm telling you what I did to them was justified. So, I'm sitting here reading this and they're just like, first you assign, and I'll list the guys. First you gave it to Tom Rainey, then you gave it to Laniel Francis Yu, and I think there was another guy, and Grant had vetoed all of them. And what I didn't know was that Grant, in his contract with Marvel, he had a thing that said he got to choose his fill-in artist. And for some reason, these assholes were not respecting that. They weren't letting him choose. Wow. They kept assigning us to him. And now here I am. Now, Laniel Francis Yu had already started doing an annual, which, by the way, went on to be very good, introducing Zorn, okay? But Grant saw that, kicked him the fuck out. And now here I am, like a little kid, drawing, as though I'm drawing Impulse, essentially. I was just a year off of Impulse, drawing the biggest comic book in the industry. And Grant didn't want me there. So I remember, like, reading this and just being like, holy shit. Like, I've just been, like, sandbagged. Getting up out of the chair and just being like, so I guess you guys were lying to me. This guy doesn't like my artwork at all. And I like stumbled to the door, like just like in a daze, like with my art bag. And they were following me. We just didn't know how to tell you. They were following behind me going, we're sorry. We just didn't know how to.
Jesus.
What a bunch of pussies.
So I went home. Well, first of all, I went to the beach and I remember it like ruined my whole vacation.
Well, wait a minute. Before you left, did they say, was this their way of telling you were off the book?
No. It was, I don't know. I'm not sure what it was. They wanted me to read Grant Morrison's opinion of my work and how unhappy he was. Maybe I would leave. I don't know what the plan was. I don't really know what the agenda was. But the entire reason they wanted me to come down and have lunch with them was because they were afraid to do this over the phone or just to be honest with me about their own fuck-ups. The entire time. Like I didn't even ask for this book. I wanted to draw my Jean Grey miniseries, and they insisted that I do this. So not only did they put me in a position where like I didn't need to be, I was wet behind the ears, I shouldn't have been on this comic book anyway, but then they lied to me about it the whole time, and then they ruined my vacation by having me come down and read a personal email from Grant Morrison. Grant didn't want me to read that. You understand? That was none of my business.
Intended for you. Yeah.
That's right. That was between Grant Morrison and editorial at Marvel. And here they are. These assholes are making me read Grant's personal email to them so that they can't just find a way to say, maybe we made a mistake putting you here. So I went to the beach and I thought about it and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I signed a 2-year contract with Marvel. I was doing really well at DC. I brought Jeff Johns over with me. Jeff's all confused. He's like writing some weird like Morlocks shit for them because we were supposed to work together. They sidelined him over here. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I was just like, all right, when I get home, I'm going to write a letter to Grant's girlfriend and hope she hands it to Grant and explain what happened to me. So I did. I wrote like an email and I just said, listen, Mr. Morrison, you have to understand, like, that, I didn't ask for this job. I was assigned this gig. I didn't know about your contract. I had no idea. I told him what happened to me at the office. I said, listen, I understand you want Frank Whiteley to draw this book. I don't belong here. I will back off of this gig and I will find something else to do. Grant couldn't have been sweeter. Grant wrote me back a long email and he said, I really like your work on 117. I thought it was really good. These guys, listen, we're Scots. We can be cunts. That's who we are. That's what we do. He's just like, let's just get together and make good comics. He was like, I'm furious that they showed you my email, though. And so he invited me to stay, and he wrote a bunch of issues specifically for me, which was great. Like he would, in the scripts, he was talking straight to me rather than to Frank Whiteley, which is the first one, which was really cool. And I created stuff that he kept. I created Glob Herman and Beak and the Stefford Cuckoos. And so all in all, it ended up being more than a successful partnership. But as soon as I got home, the other thing I did was I just went, I'm going to take issue 118 and I'm going to hide the word sex on every single page. And I'm going to slip it past my editors, the people who just did that to me. And I did. I let the colorist know. I let the inker know. I didn't let the letterer know because I didn't know who he was. But I said, look for it. It's there. Don't accentuate it, but don't hide it. And they were all in on it. They didn't notice it. It went to print. It was the #1 selling comic book that month. So everybody bought it. And then I leaked it to Wizard Magazine. I said, guys, heads up, like maybe just say some fans notice that like the word sex is hidden on a couple of pages of this. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Wizard did a whole article about it. Now, I don't know for sure that that's why those two assholes got sacked. I don't know for sure, but it happened pretty quickly after that. And fuck those guys. And by the way, I will say this, like they did come back and like Mark Powers did write me a nice letter later. They kind of pushed him over to writing some editing some G.I. Joe stuff over at IDW or something like that, one of those other companies. And he wrote me a long apology note about it. He said, you don't understand what it was like working at Marvel in the X office. He's like, you have no idea the stress we were under, the pressure all the time. But I still think back on that, and I know what we did to you was wrong.
I always felt like Mark was just a little, way over his head.
That's how they made it sound to me. He just said, look, he's like, and I understood that because when I went in there, I was like, there's fuckery afoot here. Everybody is stabbing each other in the back all the time. It is not, Marvel is not a safe place to be in 2002. It just isn't. And I could tell. I wanted to go back to DC desperately, but I meant to fulfill my contract. I meant to do my 2 years and then just flee back to DC Comics. It was fun though. I mean, I got to do some good stuff on New X-Men. That was great. I'm sorry that they made it.
I almost got to do some really good stuff on X-Men.
Sorry, dude. It would have been bad, Aaron. No matter what, it would have been bad. It would have been bad. You'll notice that like everybody who worked on New X-Men never went back to Marvel, or not for a long time, for like 10 years. Like every single person, Grant, Frank Whiteley, Phil Jimenez, like Igor Corday just disappeared. Like I don't even know where he went. I think he quit comics.